As the wind erodes and the water corrodes, altering everything we think we know, but we don't. It's all temporary, and it used to, but now the thought doesn't scare me or keep my feet from following one after another until I slumber. Then my mind and my feet wander and dream of people and places I'll never see again. I've mended as much mental anguish as I can, and now I try to use this language to take these thoughts from my head to my pen. Cause though I don't speak of my dead friends or the circumstances, often the blow never softens or yields. I'm in a desolate field, lonesome stargazing, night blazing, chasing traces of remembrance and reverence of relevant friends and acquaintances, and faceless and nameless names and faces. And while my mind is racing through these photo albums and quotations, all these people and places far from me, for only land and stars I see when I'm outside of the Mile High City, which is not my city, for I was born 1,000 miles northeast of there, in the land of beer and lakes and pistol fire, on MLK's birthday, where there is no minorities and segregation's mandatory. But that's a whole nother story altogether, and no matter the weather or hardships that any place brings, I'll still laugh when people shiver and say it's freezing, or say, hey, no, wait, I already had 18 mixed drinks, but I guess it's a Midwest thing, and I'm a mess from a dirty city and brought most of this filth I've gathered with me.
Welcome to another episode of Experience Andy Weins Live. And today we're going to be talking through breaking barriers in your own life. We have these things, these artificial ceilings that we put above us, and all too often they hold us down from becoming the person we were destined to become. Today we're going to talk through how to break through those barriers, through those ceilings with your fist and not your face. Coming up after the verse.
My work labors on as lovers sleep in each other's arms, remaining calm and collect. I begin my self-reflection process of redemption. Honestly, I don't know where this road leads, or if I'm even going. Could be rowing upstream, or worse, chasing my dreams to the peak, to finally be somebody doing something with what I have, rather than saying again and again that I can't and I won't anymore from this day forward. Cause Lord knows the past is set in stone, the present is yours to mold and to use for future uses. I know I'm a nuisance, I'm told, cause I'm neither young nor giant nor gnome. I don't sleep on these streets usually, though I've made thrones of my own. I don't sit well with idle hands, though don't know what to do when I'm home all alone. I'm a menace thrown from society, and as it lies to me, I'll smile silently as others do as they please. I am watching and listening, and I'm grinning all the while, cause sometimes all you can really do is smile. So as the work labors on, I'll keep on singing my songs, and this day is never done. We just keep on spinning around that sun, and well, through all these miles and trials, all I've learned to do is smile. Is to smile.
Welcome to another exciting episode of Experience Andy Wines Live, our weekly opportunity to break through barriers, which is what we're going to be talking about today, by shifting our language. So today we're on episode 82 already. 82. Don Beebe, 82. One of those people, when I play volleyball, I hear a number. I call out random NBA or NFL players when I hear the number. Total side note. There you go. Andy Wine's factoid of the day. All right. Before we get into what we're going to get into, let's talk about gratitude. Gratitude is like seeing the red car because you're looking for the red car. Gratitude is something I've struggled with through the years. Because as me, like most humans, have a negative comparison, negative bias. We look for things that are negative because that's going to keep us out of harm's way. And that's our lower lizard brain, our fight, flight, and freeze brain that's overly responsive. And so it's a choice to use our big brain, our upper brain, our confident, clear, and creative brain. Dr. Bill Crawford did some great research. I read about it in my book. And how do we pre-program so that we look for the gratitude by using our big brain, which is what we're going to be talking about today when we break through ceilings and break through barriers. So, with that in mind, let's focus on our big brain, being clear, confident, and creative, seeking gratitude. Today, I am thankful for Casey Krangle. Casey Krangle is an employee of mine at Camel Crew Junk Removal. We've worked together going back to 2017. He worked with us for a couple of years, left, sought out another opportunity, and came back about 2 years ago. I had the opportunity to go to a Brewers game with him on Friday, and he runs our service department, and so he's got the most direct reports. We do junk removal, so he's the one that makes things happen. And I've known him for all these years. I've known him since 2017, 8 years. I know his family, his mom, his dad, his older brothers. I went to high school with one of his brothers. And in the 3 or 4 hours from the time picking him up to taking him to the baseball game, really cemented why I do what I do as a business owner. I took someone who was a college dropout, who was lost, struggled with his identity, struggled with people accepting him for who he was. He was unable to join the military like he wanted to, and he wasn't sure where he was going in life. And I picked him up when he was down, and then, 2 years ago when he was down again, I picked him up again. Literally, I flew somebody down to, or I had one of my employees drive down to Indianapolis at the time and pick him up and bring him back here so he could get himself reestablished. And in the last 2 years, he's done exactly that. He's done an amazing job at our company. Um, and really, at the baseball game, he was very appreciative. He's saying that nobody else really gave him a chance. And he said that there was a couple, maybe a year ago, it was during a quarterly event, and I was talking about my personal life and some of the struggles I've gone through. And he said no one's ever talked to him like that. And when he goes through some personal struggles with friends, family, girlfriend, parents, he often thinks about that conversation about how vulnerable I was in that. And in the moment, it's a fleeting moment, a moment I barely remember. And he said he goes back to that. And for him, a grown man in his late 20s, early 30s, to be able to express gratitude to another man, that felt really good. It felt good because this is what we need in our society. We need more men talking about their feelings, talking about and expressing their emotions, with words, right? Expressing emotions and ideas with words, not physical actions. And so I very much appreciate him as a coworker and employee. More so, I appreciate him as a man, that is willing to be vulnerable around other men. So I very much appreciate Casey. Also, funny story, we were talking about Dr. Bill Crawford, who I wrote about in my book, and he had recently seen Dr. Bill at a training. He's like, man, there's this guy Bill talking about the big brain and the lower lizard brain, and man, I learned so much about how I can approach employees. And I go, yeah, I talked about Dr. Bill in my book. He goes, I haven't read your book yet. I go, okay, let's get on that. And so he joked, every quarter we read anywhere between 2 to 3 books. So that's his personal book of the quarter. So he's going to read my book. So I'm excited for him to allow us to have more conversations that focus on feelings and gratitude and vulnerability. So there we go. It's a long moment of gratitude and a very worthy one. And so my challenge to you, think about conversations you've had with people recently. Who fills you up? Who nurtures the person you are becoming, not the person you were? Those are the people to be grateful for. Those are the people that are focused on your growth and your future, not the people that are holding you down or keeping you in your past and preventing you in the present from moving forward on where you want to go. Second order of business, as you can see, I'm not in my normal office this week. I'm here at Waste Expo in Las Vegas. Next week, I'll be in San Diego at the Recycled Materials Association Expo there in San Diego. And so this is what I love doing. I love going to conferences, speaking, sharing my love for words and my knowledge on how words shape the world. So for you, whether it's a conference, convention, community organization, a chamber of commerce, bunch of words with C's, a company, a corporation, who needs this message? Who would benefit from this? Who are the people out there looking for the language of leadership and the language of leaders? How leaders talk will shape and mold their thoughts, which shape and mold their destiny ultimately. And we all need it in some capacity. And so, for those organizations out there that could use a speaker like me, I ask you, I implore you to reach out to them, make an introduction so that we can share more of what we're doing here with the greater world to make the world a better place. Because my why is to make the world a better place, one word at a time. Speaking of those words, let's talk about ceilings. The metaphoric ceiling. I talk about sometimes in corporate America, you'll hear the term glass ceiling and, oh, you're prevented from moving forward. All too often in our lives, we have this metaphoric ceiling. In the book 10x is easier than 2x, it consistently talks about these ceilings. We put an artificial thing above us saying we were unable to go through it. And I look at that as a limiting self-belief, right? I'm unable. This is where I'm in this box. And when you break through that ceiling, that's when you're doing 10x work instead of 2x work. 2x work is keeping the ceiling there, working harder, and only getting double the results. 10x is breaking through the ceiling, seeing things from a different perspective, doing things different, delegating things different. And when you break through that ceiling, you can look for where you came from. All of a sudden, it makes so much more sense. You're getting 10 times the return with the same similar effort because you're putting yourself in a better position to where you're going. Okay. What does this have to do with language? Well, everything to do with language. What we tell ourselves internally, those thoughts we plant, ultimately become our destiny. In my book and even on the stage, I often quote a study from 2021 by a Harvard Business Journal, where they had students, college students, that go to Harvard, smart individuals, do an impromptu 3-minute speech in front of their peers. Half of the group that were doing the speech were told to say the word "I am anxious," repeated over and over before they got on stage, 3-minute impromptu speech. The other half said, "I am excited," over and over, went on stage, 3-minute speech. Those that said, "I am excited," performed significantly better from the audience's perspective and felt more confident talking about whatever it is they talked about for those 3 minutes because they pre programmed their brain. The same neural pathway that we use for excitement and anxious is the same as for nervousness. Nervous is a human emotion. It is a neutral word. You are nervous, right? You have the gut brain health, butterflies in the stomach, all that stuff going on, right? You're all of a sudden adrenaline kicks in, heart rate races, all those things. That's a chemical reaction. Same thing happens when you get on top of a roller coaster, right? That excited versus anxious, or you're in line to see a new movie that you've been waiting for months. Oh, you're excited because you're anticipating it being great. Versus anxious, doctors coming in and tell you news. You're going on stage for the very first time, and all of a sudden you have anxiety because you have an unfavorable outcome pre-planned in your brain. And this is what it comes down to through breaking ceilings. When I talk about breaking ceilings, there's this thing above you that's preventing you from moving forward. And you have two choices, and it's rooted in your language. You're going to break through that ceiling because you want to, you have the desire to. You're going to get there, and you have a choice. You either do it with your fist on your way up, or you do it with your face because you are delaying the inevitable. The inverse of breaking a ceiling, because there are some people, 80% of people, that live in a fixed mindset. They are comfortable in their own bullshit. They're not going out breaking ceilings. They might stumble into it every now and then. It may be happenstance. They're not attacking the ceilings with their fist or their face. Those individuals often are not breaking ceilings. And what ends up happening with them when there's this ceiling and when the expectations of life, when they want to do more, they hit the ceiling and they themselves break. That happens. Happened recently at Camel Crew. One of our employees, a newer employee we had a lot of self-limiting beliefs. And the more and more we implored this individual to break through that ceiling, to get a rise above those limiting beliefs, that doubt, that anxiety, the more and more the person broke and fell into their own comfortable bullshit. And comfort is comfortable. That's why P.T. Barnum said it best. Comfort is the enemy of progress. When we talk about breaking through ceilings, it's all about progress and the words you use as you go through. And as we break through ceilings, something that I want to make very clear, failure is an option. You might hit that ceiling and fall back down, and hit that ceiling and fall back down, all the while creating shards above your head. That is an option, so long as you get yourself back up and you break through again. And sometimes those ceilings, you break through it and then you find yourself back trapped in those same ideas or that same spot in your life. 3 years ago, I hired someone to run my company. It wasn't the first time I hired somebody. It was certainly the first time I hired someone intentionally to take over the company. Hired the individual, and after 18 months, I let the individual go. And I now have a bias. The first time I broke through that ceiling of hiring somebody, it was like, oh yeah, break through it. Okay, you got it. Boom, boom, boom. And then I failed. And then all of a sudden that ceiling came back down on my head. In 2 years, or year ago, April, going into May, I brought somebody else in to run my company. And at the time, a really good friend of mine who was also our HR director of HR for all intents and purposes. His name was it is Blake. His name is Blake. I told him about my reservations. I told him about my limiting beliefs. I told him about the bullshit I was convincing myself that I was unable to do. And he said, Andy, the same man never crosses the same river twice. When the man comes back to the river, he has changed and the river has also. When I heard that, I raised up my fist and I broke through that ceiling, that limiting belief I had, because I was convincing myself that I was the same person I was 2 years before. I was convincing myself that I was going to display the same behaviors I was before. I'd already broken through that ceiling and failed. And now I had the opportunity to break through it again with my fist in the air. It goes back to what we talked about last week's lesson, 2 weeks ago. Embrace the suck. Sometimes breaking through ceilings sucks. Sometimes admitting that things you had done in the past were failures, were wrong, no longer can fit where you're going. Yeah, that can suck. Taking people that are no longer beneficial to your life and letting them know, setting those boundaries with them and letting them be successful somewhere else, sometimes it sucks. That employee I told you about that continually hit the ceiling and fell and broke, we let that individual go. It sucked. My business partner came in and goes, well, that sucked. He did not want to fire her. I struggle firing people. One of the reasons why I hired him. I delegate that to him because that's my 10x. Instead of me struggling to do it or do it poorly, I merely delegate that responsibility to somebody else. That was my 10x thinking, giving somebody else the authority and autonomy to let people go in our organization. When my business partner let that person go, he said, that sucked. Every part of it sucked. He's typing up the termination letter as the employee comes in 15 minutes early for the meeting, in which the employee knew they were going to be being let go, and yet it sucked for him, and it sucked the next couple days. He felt some sort of way. That ceiling he broke with his face, and now, in retrospect, we let that person, we gave them the opportunity to go be successful somewhere else because they were never going to be successful in our organization, and our organization would have never been successful serving that individual. So we know that that ceiling was necessary to break, and yet he broke it with his face. Now we are faced with a similar situation. We have been and we will be moving forward faced with similar situations with other employees that are struggling, and it's our opportunity now to embrace that thing that sucks, to put up our fist as we break through that ceiling. This goes back to the parable about the bison and the cattle. When the storm is coming across the landscape, the cattle run away from the storm. And when the storm catches up with them, it catches them from behind. It catches them when they're weak and weary. It catches them when they're already worn out. And as they run away from the storm, the storm stays over them longer. And all the while, they learn nothing. Because sometimes those feelings in life catch you whether you want them to or not. And now the bison, on the other hand, does the opposite. The bison sees the storm on the horizon, digs in, charges the storm, hits the storm head on, hits the storm with a max amount of force and power and energy. And as the bison takes on the storm, they spend less time in the storm because they embraced they suck. They realized this ceiling's coming and they went after it. They attacked it in a way like nobody else. That's the difference. The cattle had anxiety. They were anxious. They ran away from the inevitable. While the bison was excited. There's a storm coming, and I'm going to meet it head on. This is the opportunity for you. Think about the storm that's coming. Think about the ceiling that's limiting you from going where you want to go. There's something stopping you from going from where you are to where you want to go. I remember I went to Cardinal Stritch University, which is now closed, and their tagline was, "We are the bridge from where you are to where you want to go." So think about the bridge, think about the ceiling, think about the storm, whatever it might be. What is stopping you from getting on the other side? Because what you want is on the other side. It's going to be a self limiting belief. More than likely, I'm no different. I spent 7 years telling people I wasn't smart enough. I didn't have a degree. I didn't have a business partner. I didn't have the money. I didn't have the resources to start a business. I started a business 9 years ago and I haven't looked back since. The only thing I wanted to do different was do it sooner. Comes down to stopping myself from those limiting beliefs. Even now, as I go and travel the country and have the opportunity to keynote speak, I find those limiting beliefs creeping in all too often. And I choose to raise up my fist. I choose to break through those ceilings by reminding myself that I am excited to take on the new challenge. I am excited to suck at something new. I'm excited to fail an area I've never failed before, or maybe fail one more time and learn something along the way. So I implore you this week, while you're doing your reflections, which will lead to your realizations and ultimately the regulation, reflect, what is it I want? Realize, what can I do about it? And then regulate yourself in real time to go after that thing and attack those ceilings with your fist and not your face. As always, ladies and gentlemen, get out there this week, do the fucking thing, tell the fucking world, and show the fuck up for yourself. I'll see you next week.
Through all these miles and trials, all I've learned to do is smile. Is to smile.